When Jessica told her husband she needed a new home, she had no idea the house was already waiting for her. They bought it, but they had no idea what horrors awaited them. One night, she saw something that should not have been there. And then, her husband saw something, a figure in the shape of his wife, but it wasn't her. There was something in the attic, something that should have stayed hidden.
It was a normal day when my wife Jessica looked at me with that familiar smile and said, "I've always dreamed of having our own home." I remember her voice clearly, the way it sounded hopeful, almost like a wish. We had been living in apartments for years, never settling down, always moving from place to place. This time, she was serious, and I was ready to make that dream happen. We started looking for houses, nothing too fancy, just something we could afford and make our own. After weeks of searching, we finally found a place. It was an old cottage on a quiet street, just far enough from the city to feel peaceful but close enough to still be practical. The price was right, so we decided to go for it. The realtor didn't say much about the place, except that it had been on the market for a while, but we didn't think much of that. It seemed perfect. I remember the first time we stepped inside. The house felt cold. There was dust in the air, and the floors creaked under our feet. The smell of old wood and stale air was overwhelming. Still, there was something about it that felt right. The kind of place that, with a little work, could be made into a home. Jessica immediately started planning what we'd do with each room, where we'd put the furniture, and how we'd decorate. For the first few days, things went smoothly. We unpacked, got settled, and tried to get used to the quiet of the place. But then, things started to feel strange. The house, which had once felt welcoming, now felt like it was watching us. It was as if there were eyes in every corner. We shrugged it off at first, thinking it was just the old building settling. But the oddities didn't stop. One night, as we lay in bed, I heard the floorboards creaking. At first, I thought it was just the house. But then, I heard it again. A slow, deliberate sound, like someone was walking around the house. I got out of bed, thinking it was just the wind or maybe an animal, but I found nothing. Still, the feeling stayed with me. Something wasn't right. The next day, as I was unpacking more boxes, I noticed something odd. There was a door I hadn't seen before. It was at the end of a hallway, tucked away behind an old cabinet. I pointed it out to Jessica, and she frowned, saying she hadn't noticed it either. We decided to open it, curious. When I tried to turn the knob, it was stuck. It took a lot of force, but finally, it creaked open. The room inside was small, almost suffocating. The air felt thick, stale, like it hadn't been disturbed in years. There was a strange smell, not mold, but something else, metallic, like blood. Jessica immediately backed away, telling me we shouldn't be in there. I agreed, and we left the room, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Why was this room hidden away? What was it about this house? The next few nights, the noises started again. This time, it was worse. Footsteps pacing down the hall. I told myself it was nothing, that I was imagining things. But Jessica heard it too. We tried to ignore it, but it kept happening every night. Sometimes, I'd wake up in the middle of the night to hear doors creaking open or soft whispers, just out of earshot. The house felt alive, like something was moving through it when we weren't looking. One evening, after hearing the noises again, I decided to investigate. I was fed up with feeling on edge every night. I went upstairs to the attic, hoping to find an explanation. The stairs creaked as I climbed, the house groaning under my weight. The attic was exactly what you'd expect. Dark, cluttered with boxes and old furniture, covered in dust. But in the far corner I saw something strange. A small door. I had never noticed it before. It was hidden behind some old paintings, almost like it didn't want to be found. I showed it to Jessica, but she didn't seem to want to open it. She said we should leave it alone, but I pushed forward. Something about it called to me. When I turned the handle, the door creaked open, and a cold, musty smell hit my face. The room inside was cramped, with faded wallpaper peeling off the walls. There was nothing remarkable about it, except for the strange feeling that hung in the air. It felt wrong. Cold. Jessica shivered, telling me to leave. I agreed, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was behind that door. We shut it and tried to forget about it. But from that night on, it was like the house had changed. The air felt thicker, heavier, and the noises, footsteps, whispers, grew more frequent. Then, one night, everything changed. We were lying in bed, trying to sleep, when I heard it, the unmistakable sound of footsteps in the hallway. I wasn't imagining it this time. I got up, my heart racing, but when I checked, there was nothing. The hallway was empty. I turned back to Jessica, and she was sitting up in bed, staring at the door, her face pale. "I hear it too," she whispered, voice trembling. "Someone's walking outside." Before I could respond, I saw it. A figure. At the end of the hallway, standing in the shadows. It was tall, thin, and shrouded in darkness. It didn't move. It just stood there, watching us. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't make a sound. My body froze. And then, in the blink of an eye, it was gone. Vanished. I turned to Jessica. She was staring at me, eyes wide with fear. We didn't talk about it. We couldn't. We just lay there, staring at the door, waiting for something, anything, to happen. But nothing did. The house was silent. The next morning I went up to the attic again. I had to know what was going on. I opened the door, but the room was just as it had been. Empty. Cold. But as I stood there, I could feel it. The presence. Something watching me. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. The fear had taken over. I couldn't sleep. Every creak, every whisper made my skin crawl. So I decided to confront whatever was in the house. I went down to the basement, where I had heard strange noises before. When I opened the door, I froze. The basement was empty, but there, in the corner, was a rocking chair. It was identical to one I had thrown out before moving in, and it was rocking, slowly, back and forth. There was no wind, no draft. It just moved on its own. I stepped closer to it, my hand shaking as I reached out, and then the chair stopped. The room went completely quiet. I backed away, my heart beating fast, and locked the basement door behind me. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The fear was too much. I tried to tell myself it was just an old house, but deep down I knew it was more than that. Something was in this house with us, watching, waiting, and it wasn't going to leave until it got what it wanted. But this isn't the end. The house still has secrets, and we don't know the real scary thing that's in it. The next part will tell us what this thing wants, and what we have to do to find out the truth.